Okay, my name is Amy Glass, Chair of the Mill Rock Professional Development Committee, and I'd like to welcome you today to our final webinar of the school year. This is in conjunction with the Mill Rock Information Literacy Committee. And the presentation today is entitled Enhancing Information Literacy Instruction Through Algorithmic Awareness. And I'm sure our presenters will explain exactly what that means here. So our two presenters today are Laura Watson, Reference Librarian and Director of Library Services at Highland Community College, and Atticus Garrison, Reference and Instruction Librarian at Blackhawk College. So go ahead. Thank you, guys. Is there anybody there?
Yeah, are you advancing slides, Atticus?
Oh, yep, sorry. There we go.
There we are. And our presentation overview today is such that we're going to go over a little bit about life in the age of algorithms. We'll maybe review for some of you of information disorder and disinformation. We'll be talking about surveillance capitalism and the attention economy. And then move into algorithmic awareness, how algorithms affect us and our students, and looking at some critical pedagogy, algorithm activities for students, and we'll have some discussion and share our resource list. So I'm hoping you can see this infographic. I thought it was a good introductory slide. It's Life in the Age of Algorithms by Jessica Yarkowski, created for Project Information Literacy. And not to belabor the obvious, but in case it's a little small or whatever, I am going to read this. Data are everywhere. Sorry about the thunder. Collected 24/7 and processed in real time and at vast scale. Platforms seek patterns in data to try to predict and influence behavior and personalize news and advertising based on guesses about individual preferences, creating the potential for us to experience different realities. Our lives are increasingly influenced by decision-making systems that build on correlations, using artificial intelligence software that relies on incomplete data to make generalizations, and amplifies existing biases at large scale. Information systems we depend on are shaped by a tech culture marked by narrow perspectives and overconfidence that rely on mining users' data and manipulating their behavior in ways that undermine our trust in news, politics, and each other. Some kind of serious stuff going on there. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail. Being online almost all of the time is our reality, and it's reality for our students, of course. We're living daily in this age of algorithms, as the last slide introduces so well. The world of information available to us varies widely depending on many factors, some of which we'll get into a little bit later. But increasing awareness of the types of false information that our students may be encountering is a good starting point. And so I return to what some of us have seen before. This is a Venn diagram from Claire Wardle and Jose and Derek Shan's work on information disorder from 2017 originally, although it's appeared in some of their later articles too. Mis and disinformation are part of a landscape of what's now called, because of their work, information disorder. Claire Wardle says information disorder is complex. Some of it could be described as low-level information pollution, clickbait headlines, sloppy captions, or satire that fools, but some of it is sophisticated and deeply deceptive. It's good for us to get a handle on what's out there. It's online, but not only online. Unfortunately, people are sharing information, malinformation, and disinformation with each other in real life too. So this diagram looks at that landscape of information disorder, misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation, particularly as it relates to the problems of falseness and intent to harm. Misinformation is inaccurate content. So the far left side of the misinformation circle is that which is not intended to harm. Maybe the overlap isn't big enough here in this graphic, in my opinion, but unintentional mistakes such as inaccurate photo captions, dates, statistics, translations, or when satire is taken seriously or misinformation that's not intended to harm. Then the malinformation circle is information with intent to harm. It's content with malicious intent. The far right side of the circle of malinformation is accurate information which is shared with an intent to cause harm, such as leaking confidential documents, releasing private photos or emails. If something is shared out of context with an intent to cause a misunderstanding or spread an untrue rumor about someone, then that's malinformation, even if it's true. Disinformation is the zone where falseness overlaps with intent to harm. These are utterly false stories which are spread with malicious intent, usually with three potential reasons: to make money, for political influence, or otherwise to cause harm or trouble. Disinformation is fabricated or deliberately manipulated content, intentionally created conspiracy theories or rumors. While we hope we're finding and encountering accurate, useful information online, the quantity of data we encounter daily is vast, and it's just going to include plenty of mis, dis, and malinformation. More cartoons. As Yurkowski's infographic communicated, the information we encounter is not the only thing that's happening in the universe of data on the internet. There's also the data that's being collected about us, a topic our students also need to become aware of. We're all constantly subjected to a level of manipulation, and certainly have serious questions about our levels of privacy on the internet. What I'm talking about now is what scholar Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. Surveillance capitalism is a concept describing the widespread collection and commodification of personal data by corporations. My favorite description of surveillance capitalism comes from activist Arl Balkan. And this is kind of an extended quote, but I'm going to lay it on you because it's very good. It used to be that when you read a newspaper, the newspaper did not also read you. When you watch TV, your TV did not also watch you. Today, as you read the Guardian newspaper online, the Guardian and over 24 other third parties also read you. When you watch YouTube, YouTube also watches you. This is not some tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. It's simply the business model of mainstream technology. That's Errol Balkan, call this business model people farming. It's part of the greater socioeconomic system we inhabit that Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. And it gets worse. Alphabet Inc., which owns Google and YouTube, doesn't just watch you when you use one of their services, but they also follow you around the web as you go from site to site. Google alone has its eyes on 70 to 80% of the web, but they don't stop there either. People farmers also buy data from data brokers, share data with other people farmers, and even know when you use your credit card in brick and mortar stores. And they combine all of this information to create profiles of you, which are constantly analyzed, updated, and improved. We can consider these profiles to be simulations of us. They contain aspects of us. They can be and are used as proxies of us. They contain highly sensitive and intimate information about us, but we do not own them. The people farmers do. That's the end of that quote, which again is long, but I think really clear. Kind of an eye opener when I read it all that way. So I wanted to share that. Go ahead there. Yeah, you may have heard the aphorism regarding free internet services. If you aren't paying for a service, you are the product. This is true. Sometimes this is called the attention economy. Google and Facebook and other companies make money from their so-called free services by selling our attention and using psychology to predict and manipulate our behavior. We, the internet service users, are often ourselves creating the free and interesting content that brings people to the social media platforms to make connections with friends, relatives, strangers with similar interests, and others. Kind of keeps everyone hostage there. Sometimes companies taking advantage of the practices of surveillance capitalism are selling legitimate products, that we may actually be interested in, but all too often we are also intended targets for varieties of disinformation. Surveillance capitalism employs a number of techniques to keep us online, and we'll introduce a few of these here. First is persuasive design. Persuasive design is a key tool for surveillance capitalism. It's about designing an online product or environment so that users are pushed to take a desired action. Often the desired action is that they click the add to cart button and buy something. Sometimes the desired action is to click share, comment, whatever. Other real world actions can also be encouraged through persuasive design. Another technique or tool is attention engineering. The goal of attention engineering is to learn what keeps your attention and keeps you, and this individualized, what keeps you on the platform. Our true goal is to get users addicted to their platforms so that they come back regularly and stay on the platforms as long as possible. Their methods include engineering the opportunities for those dopamine hits we get when our friends like or share our content or make positive comments. A typical method of attention engineering is a design feature on websites called infinite scroll. This interface mechanism, which is designed to keep us doom scrolling, is common among sites that use algorithms to fetch and present new data specifically for each of us as we utilize the site. Ben Grosser, professor of new media at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, says, key to the user experience of infinite scroll is that the page they're browsing never appears to end. As they approach the bottom of the page, the site detects that condition and appends new material below it. Platforms use choice architecture to keep giving us the impression that we're choosing products, thoughts, and behaviors of our own free will. But in reality, the choices we can make have been limited, and the choice that the platform wants us to make is the easiest choice for us to make. One of their tools is called sentiment manipulation. This can take a variety of forms. Opinion spam and fake reviews provide content that can lead us to feel particular ways towards a product, a political viewpoint, or a candidate. Various ways this could affect us. We now know that Cambridge Analytica was creating and promoting false content on Facebook to sway the results of the 2016 election by micro-targeting voters with promoted content. So these are some of the ways they were doing that. Russian troll farms were able to do this too, working to spread political division and discourage Black voters and college students from voting. Other companies and interested actors pay Google, Facebook, and other players in the big data world to let them share information so that they find out the information that's been collected on you and share things intended to deceive you or sway your opinion on matters of national importance. Examples of this include promotion of disinformation on climate change or negative stories seeking to scare people about immigrants or other minoritized groups. So this information can be spread far and wide before it's properly identified as disinformation and removed by the platforms. An end goal of surveillance capitalism and the attention economy is digital resignation, which encourages us to resign ourselves to the fact that we are being constantly manipulated and surveilled and just stop thinking about it. Stop worrying about it. I'm not ready to abandon hope yet. I think there are ways to resist digital resignation, protect our privacy, and begin to be more aware and help our students develop algorithmic awareness. And here's where I'll hand it off to Atticus for some concrete ideas on that front.
Thank you, Laura. So, hello, everyone. So I'm going to be speaking about how we can potentially integrate algorithmic awareness and teaching about algorithmic awareness into our library instruction sessions. So over the course of the next few slides, I'm going to share my insights on why I think it's important to be algorithmically aware, in case Laura hasn't convinced you of that point already, and how those algorithms continue to affect us and our students and what we can do to educate our students on this topic. So let's start with the basics. What is algorithmic awareness? It's the ability to understand how algorithms work, how they affect us, and how to critically analyze them. So as we've kind of gone over, algorithms are everywhere in our lives, from the recommendations that we're getting on social media platforms to the very search results that we're getting when we interact with the search engine. So it's essential to understand how these algorithms operate. They serve many functions, and one of the functions that algorithms serve is serving us those ads. When you see an ad on your social media, that's fed to you based off of your user behavior. What you see on your feed on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, it's all generated by an algorithm designed to maximize screen time and among other things that Laura's previously mentioned. And I believe that it could be a very important component of how we integrate these teachings into our information literacy instruction if we help ground the discussion in that understanding, make it applicable to students' everyday lives, and teach vital skills that are going to help the students in the long run, even outside of the classroom when they go beyond, when they leave the doors of that instruction session. So one of the first main things that we want to teach is understanding preference bubbles. So that is pivotal in understanding how algorithms work. So how does it decide what it feeds you and what you see? Largely, it's based on what you've looked at before. When you were scrolling through your social media feed, and for example, dwelled on pictures of cute cats longer, you are going to be fed more pictures of cute cats by the algorithm. And that can extend even beyond the website that you're on, as Laura touched on earlier with the Google example. Algorithms are designed to make predictions and recommendations based on previous behavior and interactions online. So when you use Google, for example, it's going to look at your previous searches, your location information, and other factors that it has on you before it gives you a result, and it tries to tailor those results based on all of those other factors. This feedback loop of taking your inputs and then looking at your previous inputs and making new suggestions based on that is called a preference bubble, that cycle of information. So this has some dangers. It can limit exposure to diverse opinions and perspectives, because what you like seeing, you're fed more of by the algorithms, and things that you don't like seeing are not typically fed to you. So let's keep with the cat example. Let's use dogs and cats. Let's say you love seeing cats and you typically dwell on those photos that you come across on social media. You look at cat images and videos and you start seeing less dog images and videos. You click to interact with the cat's images. You click on ads that might have cats in them. And the algorithm over time will learn this and phase out those dogs images and videos that you see in your feed. These preferences feed on themselves to the point where it becomes difficult to break out of that cat bubble, even if you wanted to. If you want to see dog videos and then you even physically search them out by putting it in the search bar, your search results are even kind of tainted by that bubble. So maybe you're going to see videos with dogs and cats in them. And in case you haven't figured out by now, this goes beyond just dogs and cats. Every single topic or little checkbox that can be put on your data profile, this applies to. So political, social, even your friend groups who you're looking at more when it comes to social media profiles. This concept can be expanded to any part of our data profile. So it's a very important concept to get across and to teach. The next kind of core principle is understanding your circle of privacy. So privacy is an essential aspect of algorithmic awareness. We need to understand how our data is being collected and used by the algorithms. And the circle of privacy is a framework that we can use to help understand the different levels of privacy that we have online. It includes 4 major levels here in this. It includes, sorry about that, 5. Essentially, it's looking at private, you directly, friends, family, acquaintances, and the public. Sorry about that. It is crucial to be aware of these levels and know who has access to our data at each of those levels. This comes with being aware of the different privacy settings that are available on each of these different social media platforms. Each of these platforms handle privacy differently, and the scope of that internet privacy is very massive. So it can be very difficult to tackle this subject in a way that gets many of the core pillars, that makes you feel like you're making a dent, kind of as Laura previously mentioned, getting into that It's very easy to get into a mindset where there's no point in learning about how to make yourself private, because literally every interaction on these social media platforms is feeding into an algorithm and being collected somewhere and being sold to data brokers. So if every click that's being fed into this algorithm feeds into your data profile, what's the point of putting forth effort to protect your data privacy? And I say, as a response to that, is it starts with one step at a time. So it's not an all or nothing game when it comes to interacting with these websites. Many of these sites do have robust tools at their disposal, some of them forced on them by legal regulations, others in signs of good faith. Unplug that real quick. You'll see this sometime. Many of these sites do have robust tools at their disposal that allow users to control who can and cannot view the content that you share. And understanding these tools play into that circle of privacy. So you'll see sometimes on Facebook where users are not aware that commenting on a public post is different than direct messaging a person. Understanding your circle of privacy can help ensure that your interactions online are only seen by those who want to see them, and in the process, you'll have a better overall understanding of how privacy settings work generally on these websites. Now that we've discussed some of the basics of algorithmic awareness, let's move on to the critical perspective. What should we do with this information? How can we bring our students to the table and make this applicable to them? We need to teach them how to critically analyze algorithms and their impact on us and our society. We need to help them understand that algorithms are not neutral and they can perpetuate bias and discrimination, kind of like what Laura talked about. Our students have largely interacted with these systems in some way, shape, or forms, and sometimes extensively they've had interaction with these systems. They all have their own preference bubbles, and they likely already understand the circle of privacy to some degree. So it's our job to integrate those understandings into our talks about media, digital, and information literacy. When we talk about evaluating sources that are found on the internet, make sure to point out the role that algorithms play in leading the students to those sources on the internet. Maybe even point out that you yourself have biases in behavior that is fed into your own algorithms. Doing this makes what they are seeing during those instruction sessions applicable to their everyday lives, which is something that I have found is vital at grabbing the attention of many students. If students cannot see the immediate benefit or applicability of a topic, they tend to tune out. So if you cannot tie your instruction to either an assignment or an assignment that the students will be working on in the near future, or a skill that will affect their everyday lives, they're likely to tune out and not pay attention. Unfortunately, learning for the sake of learning is not a winning marketing strategy in this sense in the classroom. But if you're able to tie the lessons in this way to skills that are important and will help them in their everyday lives, which I believe applies to most of the lessons that we have in our instruction sessions, by the way, then they're more likely to listen. It's all about how we frame it in our sessions. Another important thing that framing our instruction sessions in this way does is it makes us seem more approachable as librarians and as educators. We also have preference bubbles. We also have to navigate these frameworks and understandings. And that approachability can help foster more reference queries, more interactions between students and us as librarians, simply by framing these issues in a way that makes us more approachable. Finally, let's look at some classroom activities that can help students understand algorithmic awareness. The first exercise that I've listed here involves doing a deep dive on one of these systems that operates algorithmically and going in depth with how they gather, harvest, and apply our data. So one example could be looking at TikTok, since that's a popular one recently, and noting that it gauges watch time, likes, how often you're on the app, do you click on the comments section, do you interact with the comments section, etc. Noting all of these and going through it systematically and looking at all of those barometers and how it feeds the algorithm back to us, that preference bubble idea. This exercise would allow for students to take what they learn in the lesson and extrapolate that out to all the other applications that they're using in their lives that feed off those algorithms. The next activity involves students working in groups or pairs, maybe using a few example screens or queries. and looking at the different outputs. Maybe have people go to their Facebook page or whatever social media they have and seeing what ads are being served to them. And maybe ask the critical question, why are those ads being served to you? What do you think you've done that has fed that into the algorithm, and why is it giving you that output? What videos are being recommended over in the recommended videos part of the screen? What kind of content is being shown in general? It's an enlightening exercise that leads to students being more critically aware of what's showing up in their feeds and being more critical overall of the content that is shown to them. This exercise could easily tie into any source evaluation focused instruction session, where we're teaching students to be critical of the sources that they come across on the internet. And the final activity I listed here is related to that understanding of the circle of privacy that we talked about. This lesson involves going through privacy settings and showing students the differences and implications of different privacy settings, and posting rules that allow for them to have more agency on who gets to see what they post on the internet. And this is my final slide. And these are two links that I think are two really important resources that could be integrated into your instruction sessions. So the first is Domo and their Data Never Sleeps infographic. It collects data relating to internet traffic and how many people are spending time on the internet and how they're spending their time on the internet when they're there. The second resource is where I got some of those assignments that I listed from. It's called the Algorithm Literacy Education Guide, and it was put together by the Algorithm Literacy Project. It's a list of activities that go through how to conduct lessons related to algorithmic awareness and how to integrate them into lesson plans. And I will drop that link in the chat as well for anyone that wants to go through those. And then
Atticus, I was going to ask to see if you could share the slides with us after, or share the slides with me afterwards, and then that way everybody will have the links too.
Perfect. I can do that for sure. Yeah. And before I hand it over to questions, you can all still see this, I hope. You can see okay. So this is the Data Never Sleeps. So they've been doing this now for 10 years, where they're going over and I wasn't able to integrate it into the slide because it's kind of long form and it's a little awkward, but hopefully you can all see it. And we can see every minute of the day, and it goes through just the raw data of how much time we spend on the internet and what we do while we're on the internet. So as we can see here, 500 hours of videos are uploaded every minute on YouTube. We have 1 million hours of streaming, over 104,000 hours spent in Zoom meetings, etc. And I think this can be a really helpful, useful infographic. And this one in particular, because it's the 10-year anniversary, they're comparing where we were 10 years ago to now. So this can be a really good way of grounding the importance of learning these lessons, because we're not getting less digital. We are continuing to get more digital and digitally active. So it's important to learn how to navigate this landscape that's going in a direction that will help to know how to navigate it. And like I mentioned, the final resource is this Algorithm Literacy Project. It's a really helpful guide, and it has more than just the 3 lessons that I outlined, but we can go through and look at. And as you can see here, I borrowed the preference bubbles diagram from this, but it goes through why it's important to teach this, how you can go about integrating it. Integrating it into your instruction session, useful things to know. It also lists some activities you can do with students. One of them being the compare and contrast your different algorithmic outputs. So I think these are 2 very useful resources that I think you could start tomorrow integrating them into your instruction sessions if you wanted to. And that kind of segues into, as I jump back to this, any questions you have. We were kind of hoping to leave enough time at the back end here for it to be this to be sort of discussion based. So you can either raise your hand, I've got the chat up, or you can put your questions or comments in the chat.
Yeah, people can use the chat to ask their questions, or I did mute everybody. So if you want to use your microphone, you can do so. Just unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We got you, Sarah.
Okay, great. I had a question for you. Do you find what teachers are asking you to do these lessons? Because I've found that when I try to integrate this kind of information into my regular ones, the teachers all say no. So have you found a certain subject area or teachers who are willing to have these kind of lessons integrated into their classes?
I haven't yet. I'll tell a story. If Atticus wants to speak first, that's fine. I will say, my plan for addressing this is our one book, one Highland for fall of 2023, which is going to be over the book What the Fact by Seema Yasmin. And so we're planning some workshops in conjunction with this one book project that I'm hoping will get the information out there, even though we aren't being invited to present it yet.
Yeah, and I guess had a little bit more success. I've had two instructors that expressed interest. One was for speech and English classes, and one was for history classes, where I would typically do like a source evaluation component, and this is a part of that source evaluation component. And largely how that came about was those faculty members. So I go to different departments and I'm like, hey, get on my calendar for instruction sessions. Here's the list of things that can take. And I found that the faculty that expressed interest weren't aware that I did more than here's the library catalog, here's the database. Here's how, here's the link to get to it on the website. Don't forget about me, please. It was going to the faculty and letting them know there are more components. There are more things that I can offer if you want it. So two, I guess, is better than none. I would like to do this in more classes. And I, outside of the low-hanging fruit of the faculty that were like, oh, I would love that, my students haven't been using properly vetted sources. I would love for you to have a source evaluation component. Outside of that, I haven't, like Laura, I haven't been super successful in winning over people that aren't already looking for that.
Okay. Thomas has a question in the chat. Do students mind sharing the ads they see on their social media accounts with their partners or with the whole class?
Yeah, that was a thought I had when I came across that too. And I think that's why the smaller groups works better than sharing it with the whole class. And it might not even be, that is a component because of how personal it is, right? So I think one way that you can, it's literally it's distilling us down to a box of check boxes of personality traits, right? And then we are, in some ways, this assignment would be us sharing our box to another student. One way that I think that could be worked around, if that's a concern, is you still have the students, but you don't have the student like showing their phone. You have them, maybe there's a piece of paper where it's like, okay, what did your group's algorithms feed out? And someone's like, oh, when I did that search, I was seeing videos on this. So no one's like handing their phone around, because that's also a privacy issue, right? And I think I'm happy you brought that up. But I think the group project could be you share what you're willing to share, right? So if you're like, oh man, I don't feel good about how few dog videos, I just can't stand dogs, but I don't want my classmates knowing about that, right? Maybe you don't put that in the assignment, but you can share like, oh, for whatever reason, I'm only getting fed, I don't know, Chicago Cubs related news, right? And you're like, oh, and so that can be, so you share what you're willing to share. And I think as long as that idea comes across, as long as that the point of the assignment is the preference bubble. So as long as that still gets conveyed, I don't know if it's necessarily necessary to like share your phone. And if you're personally willing to share what your recommendations are, and then the assignment could be, all right, what are you all seeing that's different from what I'm seeing? That could be another way to frame the assignment.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I would also be interested in hearing in the chat if anyone else has had success. on breaking out of, and this is a little bit outside of the scope of our presentation, but it kind of isn't. If anyone has had success on pitching the faculty the kind of instruction sessions we're talking about, I would also love to hear it in the chat, or if everyone's having a similar experience where it's maybe a handful of, oh, sure, I see a hand. Jason.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I have had a little bit of the success on this in that I just, I kind of don't ask. It's a part of evaluation. And so if my class is on evaluation of information, it just gets in there. And that's how I've been doing it lately. So one of the other things I do is I separate. I don't let the faculty make me teach evaluation and searching in the same session. That's insane. And I just don't do it anymore. And so if they want to do 2 sessions with me, one on evaluation, one on search skills, I can integrate algorithmic understanding in each of those, in that understand why your Google results look the way they do in search, but also understand what the algorithms is feeding you in your media as it pertains to evaluation. So that's kind of how I integrate it into what I'm already doing. I don't ask, yeah, because I think it is important, especially for the search, not to mention as an evaluation tool. So thank you. Yeah, this is great.
Atticus, there in the chat, it says, Valerie says, we incorporate this into our communication sessions. It's a part of the session and works well. As Jason said, we don't ask, we just do. So I was thinking a little bit in our instances that we're in some ways getting less and less in-person instruction sessions just for the sake of faculty are still struggling to try to fit all the material that they are in. And so I think in some ways, what I would probably consider is starting to work through some of these as like tutorials that we can then have thrown into our Canvas courses, that the faculty member can say, here's something for you to consider when you're doing this, and maybe have some sort of quiz tied to it at the end of it that could be so that the faculty member would know that the student has actually watched the tutorial. That's kind of where I would think we might want to go with that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have too much to add to that outside of, I think that is a great way to integrate this. So then it's an option that's there. It's clearly visible, and with, especially, you know, at our campus, there's a lot of classes that are online that are maybe synchronous or asynchronous now. And I think if you can integrate a video tutorial that just gets clopped on. So here at Blackhawk, we have a research skills tutorial that breaks down a lot of the key components that we would go over in an instruction session. And it's just a module that faculty can integrate into their course as they see fit, as well as video tutorials. So I think that could be a really great way of integrating this into just classrooms so that these lessons get taught, and as a way where, you know, kind of like what Jason said, it's just there. It's not something that they have to explicitly ask for.
Yeah. To continue Valerie's thing here, I'm reading the chats because of the recording. It's part of a Google literacy portion of the session. She personally saves ads, memes, and other things that she comes across that she can tell are highly customized for her. And then she picks what is comfortable, that she's comfortable sharing with, and doesn't include the context for her own privacy, but it's not for everybody. But I can think of things like that too, knowing that my Facebook feed, I've been doing a lot of jigsaw puzzles lately, so I am now suddenly getting lots of ads for jigsaw puzzles. I would not have a problem sharing that. So
It's a great idea.
any other questions? If there's nothing else, then I will ask Atticus if you'll share the slide deck with me, and then the recording will come out probably either tomorrow or Thursday. I have put into the chat a link to our feedback form that we are gathering data on how you felt about this presentation. And with that, I am going to stop the recording.